In the heart of Seoul, amidst the steel and glass monuments to ambition, there exists a man known by a singular, chilling moniker, the Eraser. Victor Han. His vision, uncompromising. His method, irreversible. Where he saw opportunity, others saw history. Where they cherished echoes of the past, he saw only the relentless march of progress. He built empires from dust, leaving no trace of what once stood, a testament to his belief that only the new could truly endure. A titan of urban development, Victor Han had never met a wall he couldn't tear down, a legacy he couldn't pave over. But then came Zoraida, an architect of preservation, not destruction. She didn't seek to build monuments to herself, but to breathe life back into forgotten stories, to mend the broken rather than replace it. She saw Seoul where he saw obsolescence. She saw resilience where he saw decay. And at the heart of their collision lay Heejeom Village, a whisper from old Seoul, targeted by the Eraser. What happens when an immovable force, convinced of impermanence, meets something too beautiful, too vital to ever truly break? What happens when the blueprint of two opposing worlds begins to sketch a shared future? They called it a formality, another nail in the coffin of Seoul's memory. But for me, for the people of Heejeom Village, it was the last stand. A fight not just for bricks and mortar, but for the very soul of a city that was rapidly forgetting its own heartbeat. The room is packed. JOURNALISTS jostle for position. Residents of Heejeom Village clutch faded photographs, their faces etched with anxiety. At the head table, the committee members look weary, as if they've presided over this exact scene 100 times. Seated opposite them, at a long, polished table, is Victor Han, 30s, sharp, impeccably dressed in a dark suit. He radiates an aura of controlled power, his gaze unwavering, almost predatory. His team of lawyers and urban planners sit beside him, a silent, formidable phalanx. He is known as Kwanyul in hushed tones across the city, the developer who always gets his way. Facing him, isolated yet defiant, is Zoraida, 30s, intelligent, her natural afro-textured hair a striking contrast to the muted tones of the room. She wears a tailored but unpretentious outfit, a symbol of her dedication to her craft over flash. Her presentation slides, projected behind her, are not glossy renders of new buildings, but faded sepia photographs of Heejeom Village, interspersed with detailed architectural diagrams highlighting its unique historical significance. 50s, stern but fair-minded, clears her throat. We have heard the comprehensive redevelopment proposal from Han Holdings, outlining the economic benefits and the creation of the new Seoul Global Hub. Mr. Han, would you like to add any final remarks? Victor Han rises, his movements economical. His voice is deep, resonating with an unshakable conviction. Chairwoman Park, esteemed committee members, citizens of Seoul, my proposal is not merely about profit. It is about progress. Heejeom Village, while holding a certain nostalgic charm, is structurally unsound, economically unviable, and poses a significant drain on city resources. We are offering a solution that will bring jobs, innovation, and global recognition. To cling to the past, to buildings that are literally crumbling, is not preservation. It is stagnation. Seoul deserves to look forward, not backward. A ripple of murmurs goes through the room. Some nod, swayed by his logic. Others scowl, hurt by his dismissive tone. Victor scans the room, his eyes briefly flicking to Zoraida, a hint of disdain in their depths as if she were merely a nuisance. Chairwoman Park turns to Zoraida. Ms. Zoraida Adebyo, your counter-proposal for the Heejeom Living Museum and Artisan District has also been reviewed. Your final remarks, please. Zoraida stands. Her posture is graceful, but her eyes burn with an intensity that matches Victor's. She doesn't raise her voice, but every word cuts through the tension. Thank you, Chairwoman. Mr. Han speaks of progress. But what is progress if it means erasing the very identity that makes Seoul unique? He calls Heejeom Village structurally unsound. Yet my proposal includes detailed engineering plans for its complete structural remediation, utilizing traditional Korean joinery techniques alongside modern reinforcement. He calls it economically unviable. Yet our projections, based on successful models in Kyoto and Amsterdam, show a vibrant artisan economy, attracting heritage tourism and fostering local entrepreneurship, creating sustainable wealth, not just transient construction jobs. She gestures to her slides, which now show detailed cross-sections of old wooden beams, intricate roof tiles, and the thriving communal spaces she envisions. Victor Han sees decay. I see resilience. He sees a blank canvas for steel and glass. I see a living tapestry woven with generations of stories. The global hub he proposes could be built anywhere. It lacks soul. Hejium Village, however, is irreplaceable. It is soul's fingerprint. To destroy it, Mr. Han, is not progress. It is cultural amnesia. A stunned silence falls. Her quiet, intellectual demolition of his arguments is far more effective than any loud protest. Victor Han, who has been listening with a sardonic smirk, suddenly stiffens. His eyes narrow, a flicker of genuine surprise replacing his usual condescension. Zoraida's words, particularly her references to traditional joinery and architectural theory, hit him differently. It's a niche, almost academic point, when he rarely hears from commercial developers. Chairwoman Park, sensing the shift, interjects. Ms. Adebio, your plan involves a significant allocation of city funds for restoration and ongoing maintenance. Without the immediate, large-scale financial injection Mr. Han's project promises. How do you propose to justify this long-term investment? Because, Chairwoman, Zoraida replies, her gaze locking with Victor's for a split second. Some things cannot be valued purely in one. The preservation of culture, the fostering of community, the connection to our past. These are intangible assets that enrich a city in ways a skyscraper never can. Our plan is not about a quick return. It's about a legacy. It's about building something that actually lasts, not just physically, but spiritually. Victor Han's jaw tightens. Building something that actually lasts. The phrase seems to echo in the room, hitting a raw nerve within him. He prides himself on building monuments, yet Zoraida implies his work is ephemeral, lacking true substance. The committee deliberates for what feels like an eternity. The residents hold their breath. Journalists scribble furiously. Victor Han remains impassive, though a vein throbs faintly in his temple. Zoraida watches, her face a mask of serene anticipation, but her heart hammers against her ribs. Finally, Chairwoman Park clears her throat, the sound amplified in the tense silence. The committee has reached a decision. She pauses, her gaze sweeping between Victor and Zoraida. After careful consideration of both proposals, weighing the economic impact against the cultural and historical significance, and taking into account the innovative sustainability aspects of Ms. Adebio's plan, we have voted. Another pause, agonizingly long. The proposal for the Hejium Living Museum and Artisan District is approved, with the caveat, due to the significant public interest and the scale of the investment, that Han Holdings will be mandated to form a joint venture, providing logistical and financial oversight in a non-executive capacity. Your firms will work together to ensure the project's success. A collective gasp fills the room. The residents erupt in cheers, some openly weeping with relief. Zoraida, her eyes wide with disbelief and relief, manages a small, shaky smile. Victor Han, however, remains frozen. His meticulously planned demolition, his guaranteed victory, had just been overturned. And by whom? A relatively unknown, fiercely articulate preservationist who had just dismantled his arguments with a quiet brilliance. His eyes find Zoraida's again. This time there's no disdain, only a profound, unsettling surprise. He, Victor Han, the eraser, had been stopped. And worse, he was now tied to the very thing he sought to destroy. His gaze lingers on Zoraida, a complex cocktail of frustration, grudging respect, and an unfamiliar sense of intrigue swirling within him. The storm outside rages on, mirroring the storm that has just begun between these two vastly different worlds. This was not the end of Hejium Village. It was merely the beginning of their shared, tumultuous blueprint. The conference room is a study in minimalist luxury. Sleek black furniture, floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of Seoul, and an enormous, state-of-the-art display screen. Victor Han sits at the head of the table, his usual impeccable composure strained. His top executives, including his stoic chief of staff, Min Jun, and his sharp head of legal, Sohyun, sit around him, their faces a mixture of concern and guarded curiosity. Minjun clears his throat. Sir, the media reaction has been considerable. Han Holdings forced to compromise. The eraser meets his match. These are typical headlines. The stock took a minor hit, but we anticipate it will stabilize. Victor waves a dismissive hand. The stock is irrelevant. What is relevant is this joint venture. Explain it to me again, Soo-hyun, every excruciating detail. Soo-hyun, a woman with a cool, analytical demeanor, flips open a tablet. The mandate from the planning committee is clear. Han Holdings is required to provide logistical and financial oversight in a non-executive capacity. This means we allocate resources, personnel, equipment, a percentage of the original development budget to Ms. Adebayo's project. However, we have no direct creative control over the architectural design or preservation methods. Victor's eyes flash. No direct creative control, so I am to bankroll an antique museum providing my expertise without a say in its construction. This is preposterous. It makes us look weak. It undermines my entire brand. The committee specifically cited the public trust aspect, sir, Minjun interjects. They want the perception of Han Holdings lending its immense resources to a culturally significant project, balancing our reputation for modernization with a commitment to heritage. Victor leans back, his gaze fixed on the bustling city outside. Public trust, cultural significance, pretentious nonsense. My trust is built on efficiency, on tangible results. This woman, Zoraida Adebayo, she spoke of spirit and legacy. She dismantled my core argument with poetry. He scoffs, but there's a flicker of something beneath the derision, perhaps a grudging respect. Who is she? Victor asks suddenly. Her firm isn't large. I haven't encountered her on any major projects before. Soo-hyun consults her tablet again. Zoraida Adebayo, American but with Nigerian heritage. Studied architecture at MIT, specialized in heritage preservation at the University of Cambridge. Ran a small, highly respected firm in London, Adebayo Restoration, before moving to Seoul 2 years ago. Her work includes several UNESCO Heritage Site nominations and the award-winning restoration of the Gyeongbok Palace artisan workshops. Victor frowns. Gyeongbok Palace, that was a beautifully executed project, discreet, historically accurate. I recall seeing an article, so she's not an amateur. She knows her craft. Evidently, sir, Minjun responds dryly. She outmaneuvered us. Victor rises and walks to the window, his back to his team. The city below stretches out, an endless canvas of his ambition. Find her. Arrange a meeting. Immediately. I need to understand her vision firsthand. And more importantly, I need to understand how she managed to derail mine. Zoraida's office is a stark contrast to Han Holdings. It's a charmingly cluttered space in a historic, low-rise building near the city center. Bookshelves overflow with architectural texts and cultural histories. Blueprints are tacked to the walls. Samples of traditional Korean timber and aged roof tiles sit on her desk alongside a half-empty mug of tea. The air smells of old paper and wood. Zoraida is poring over detailed blueprints of Hejeom Village, her brow furrowed in concentration. She still feels the adrenaline of yesterday's victory, but also a new, daunting weight of responsibility. Her assistant, Jiyo, 20s, bright, efficient, pokes her head in. Ms. Adebayo, you have a call from Han Holdings, Victor Han's office. Zoraida looks up, surprised. Han Holdings, really? Put it through, Jiyo. Jiyo nods, and a moment later, Zoraida picks up the receiver. This is Zoraida Adebayo. Ms. Adebayo, a crisp, professional female voice states. This is Soo-hyun, head of legal for Han Holdings. Mr. Han would like to arrange a meeting with you this afternoon to discuss the Hejeom Village joint venture. Are you available at 3 p.m.? Zoraida hesitates, a small smile playing on her lips. He doesn't waste time, does he? Yes, 3 p.m. is fine. Where would you like to meet? Mr. Han prefers to meet at the project site itself, Hejeom Village. He believes it's imperative to assess the current state of affairs. Zoraida's smile widens. Of course, tell Mr. Han I look forward to it, and thank him for being so hands-on. She hangs up, a spark of anticipation in her eyes. The game had truly begun. The village is a maze of narrow alleyways, traditional hanok houses with curved tiled roofs, and small, struggling artisan shops. It's quiet, almost sleepy, but filled with a tangible sense of history. Children play in a small courtyard, their laughter echoing off the ancient walls. Zoraida arrives early, walking through the village, talking to a local ceramist, and checking on the preliminary structural assessments. She feels a deep connection to this place, its vulnerability, its quiet defiance against the encroaching modernity. Victor Han's arrival is a stark contrast. A sleek, black luxury sedan pulls up to the edge of the village, followed by another with Minjun and Suhayan. Victor steps out, dressed in an equally sleek charcoal suit, looking utterly out of place amidst the crumbling beauty. He scans the surroundings with an almost clinical detachment, his expression unreadable. He spots Zoraida speaking with an elderly woman, a florist whose shop boasts vibrant blooms despite the encroaching decay. Zoraida's laughter rings out, warm and genuine. Victor observes her for a moment, an unexpected curiosity stirring within him. She seems utterly at ease here, a part of the fabric of the village, not an intruder. Zoraida turns, sensing his presence. Their eyes meet across the narrow alleyway. The air immediately thickens. "Mr. Han," Zoraida greets him, walking towards him, her professional demeanor firmly in place. "Thank you for coming." "Ms. Adebio," Victor replies, his voice cool and measured. He extends a hand, which she takes. His grip is firm, confident. "I prefer to see things for myself, especially when a significant investment of my company's resources is involved." "Understood," Zoraida says, releasing his hand. "I imagine you see a great deal of potential for improvement." There's a subtle edge of challenge in her tone. Victor's lips curve into a faint, almost imperceptible smirk. "Potential for transformation, Ms. Adebio. You see history. I see untapped space." He gestures around. "These buildings, structurally compromised, inefficient layouts. The infrastructure is decades behind. This isn't a museum, it's a liability." "It's a community, Mr. Han," Zoraida counters, her voice still calm, but with steel underneath. "And a testament to resilient architecture. You speak of inefficiency, but these hanok were designed for natural ventilation, for harmony with the environment long before green building became a buzzword. Their materials breathe, adapt, unlike the hermetically sealed glass boxes you build." Victor's gaze sharpens. "Glass boxes are durable, Ms. Adebio. They are symbols of strength, of defiance against the elements and time. They do not breathe because they are built to resist decay, to stand pristine for generations." There's a note of personal conviction in his voice now, a glimpse into his core philosophy. "Pristine, perhaps," Zoraida concedes, "but cold. Without the stories etched into their surfaces, without the patina of time, they are merely structures. Hijium Village has endured wars, fires, rapid development. It has changed, yes, but it has never been erased. That is its true strength." Victor walks over to an old wooden gate, its paint peeling, but its hinges still sturdy. He runs a finger along the weathered wood. Endurance can also be a burden, a constant struggle against entropy. He looks at her, a strange glint in his eyes. "You spoke yesterday of building something that actually lasts. Do you truly believe these relics can last in the face of modern demands?" "I don't just believe it, Mr. Han," Zoraida says, meeting his gaze directly. "I know it. With the right vision, the right techniques, and a true understanding of their inherent strength, they can not only last but thrive. The question is, are you willing to see past the decay and recognize the resilience?" He stares at her, a long, assessing look. He sees not just an architect, but a formidable opponent, perhaps even a kindred spirit in her own intense convictions. The rain has stopped, and a sliver of sunlight breaks through the clouds, illuminating the old village in a golden glow, as if in silent agreement with Zoraida's words. Victor Han, the man who prided himself on seeing only the future, finds himself momentarily captivated by the past, embodied in the passionate architect standing before him. The joint venture was going to be far more complicated and far more interesting than he had ever anticipated. Working with Victor Han was like trying to draft a blueprint with an earthquake. Every decision, every design choice became a battle of wills. He saw inefficiency where I saw craftsmanship. He saw cost where I saw value. Yet, through the clashes, I was beginning to see glimpses of the man beneath the eraser facade. A glimpse that was far more complex, and perhaps far more vulnerable than I had ever imagined. The temporary office is a converted hanok, larger than Zoraida's main firm office, now equipped with modern drafting tables, computers, and a large central meeting table. Blueprints are everywhere, some pristine, some heavily marked up with red pen. Zoraida stands over a large-scale model of Hegeum Village, meticulously explaining the proposed traffic flow and pedestrian zones to a small team. Her passion is evident in her animated gestures. Suddenly, the door opens, and Victor Han walks in. He's still immaculately dressed, but now in a more practical, yet still elegant, field jacket over his shirt. He carries a tablet, his face set in a familiar, unreadable expression. Minjun and Suhyun follow behind him. The hum of conversation in the room immediately quiets. Ms. Adebyo, Victor's voice cuts through the silence. A moment of your time, if you please. Zoraida turns, a practiced smile on her face. Of course, Mr. Han, what can I do for you? He walks directly to the model, his gaze sweeping over it. The proposed heating system for the artisan workshops. You've specified an underfloor hydronic radiant system with geothermal backup. The initial cost projection is nearly double that of a standard four-stair system. And the long-term energy savings are projected to be over 40%, Zoraida responds without missing a beat. Furthermore, the radiant heat is far gentler on delicate artisan materials, ceramics, wood, textiles, preventing warping and cracking that forced air can cause. It's a preservation choice as much as an efficiency one. Victor taps his tablet. And the installation time? Significantly longer. We're already behind schedule on the infrastructure upgrades due to unforeseen complexities with the sewage lines. Which is why we planned for that contingency, Zoraida replies, pointing to a section of the model. The geothermal loops are being laid in conjunction with the new sewage system trenching. It's integrated, not additive. Victor stares at her for a long moment, a flicker of grudging admiration in his eyes. She'd anticipated his every objection. You're exceptionally thorough, Ms. Adebyo. I prefer to think ahead, Mr. Han, she says, a subtle challenge in her tone. Especially when dealing with something as fragile as history. Or as delicate as my budget, Victor retorts, a dry wit she was slowly beginning to recognize. He then turns his attention to a different section of the model, focusing on the proposed community center. The structural reinforcement for the main community hall. You've detailed a complex system of internal steel bracing, carefully hidden within the original timber framework. Why not simply rebuild with modern, reinforced concrete and facade it with traditional materials? It would be faster, cheaper, and arguably stronger. Zoraida walks to the community hall section, her voice softening as she speaks, a genuine passion flowing through her. Because, Mr. Han, it wouldn't be the same building. This hall has stood for nearly 200 years. Generations have gathered here, celebrated, mourned, made decisions. Its timbers carry the marks of their lives. To replace the structure, even with a perfect replica, would be to erase that history, to break the continuity. The steel bracing is an intervention, yes, but one that respects the original integrity, allowing the building to tell its own story without interruption. It's about honesty and restoration, about letting the old speak through the new. Victor listens, his usual analytical gaze softening, almost imperceptibly. He runs a hand over the miniature timber roof of the model. He thinks of his own history of things that were lost, unable to be replaced. For a moment, his professional mask slips, revealing a flicker of something contemplative. Honesty, he murmurs, more to himself than to Zoraida. Sometimes, rebuilding from scratch is the most honest approach, acknowledging that some things simply cannot be saved. Zoraida hears the underlying pain in his voice, a brief, fleeting vulnerability that catches her by surprise. Perhaps, she says gently, but sometimes, fighting for what can be saved, for what deserves to endure, is the greatest honesty of all. Their eyes meet. It's not a challenge anymore, but a moment of shared understanding, a brief connection forged in their divergent philosophies. The air between them, usually charged with professional friction, now hums with something else, a burgeoning, complex intrigue. Min-jun clears his throat, breaking the spell. Mr. Han, the city council is awaiting your revised proposal for the main pedestrian thoroughfare. The landscaping budget is still a point of contention. Victor blinks, his professional mask snapping back into place. Right. Ms. Adebio, continue your excellent work. We will discuss the heating system budget in our next meeting. He gives her a curt nod and turns to leave, his entourage following. Zoraida watches him go, a small, thoughtful frown on her face. He was an enigma, a man of stark contrasts, ruthless in business, yet capable of an almost philosophical introspection. She found herself increasingly curious about what truly drove the eraser. Victor sits at his vast desk, the city lights twinkling outside like a scattered constellation. He's reviewing architectural schematics for a new high-rise project, but his mind keeps drifting back to Zoraida's words. Honesty in restoration, letting the old speak through the new. And his own, acknowledging that some things simply cannot be saved. He calls up a secure file on his computer, a file he rarely opens. It contains old photographs, pictures of a beautiful, traditional family home nestled in a vibrant neighborhood, vibrant with life. Then, photos of its demolition, a blurred wrecking ball, and finally, an empty lot. A memory from his childhood, a traumatic loss that had shaped his entire worldview. The swift, brutal demolition of his ancestral home, deemed unsafe after a tragic fire, despite his family's pleas for restoration. His grandfather, a proud scholar of traditional Korean architecture, had never recovered. That loss had instilled in Victor a deep-seated belief that anything old was inherently fragile, doomed to decay, and ultimately, unable to protect itself from the relentless forces of time and progress. His towering, modern buildings were his answer to that vulnerability, unyielding, pristine, designed to stand unblemished, symbols of control over impermanence. He closes the file, the pain still a dull ache. He looks out at the city, at the sleek towers he had built. They offered no comfort tonight. He then pulls up the architectural plans for Hejeum Village, specifically Zoraida's intricate diagrams for the community hall's steel bracing, hidden within the timber. Her ability to strengthen without erasing, to respect the original while ensuring its future, was a concept that both fascinated and disturbed him. It challenged his fundamental belief system. He picks up his phone and calls Min-jun, on the Hejeum Village project, increase the contingency budget for unforeseen structural issues by another 10%, and prioritize securing the highest grade, domestically sourced timber for the repairs. Ms. Adebio mentioned a specific type of cypress facilitate that. Min-jun, accustomed to Victor's abrupt commands, merely replies, "Understood, sir. Anything else?" Victor looks out at the night sky. "No, not tonight." He hangs up, his gaze lingering on the complex. Beautiful blueprints of Hejeum Village. Zoraida's vision wasn't just about old buildings. It was about something far deeper, something that was beginning to resonate with a part of him he had long since encased in steel and glass. The blueprint of their shared future was still unwritten, but the first lines, however divergent, were slowly, irrevocably being drawn. The standoff at the gates of Hejeum Village becomes a digital wildfire. Zoraida's live stream isn't just a technical feed, it's a global event. Millions watch as Victor Han, the eraser, sits like a stone statue in the path of destruction. Director Cho is frantic. He's on his satellite phone, his voice cracking as he screams for instructions. The bulldozer driver, a man named Min-ho who has worked for Han Holdings in the past, looks physically ill. He knows Victor Han. He knows that the man sitting in the mud isn't just a CEO, he's a force of nature. "Move the machine," Cho screams, his face a shade of purple that matches the bruised morning sky. "I can't," Min-ho yells back. "He's sitting on the property line. If I touch him, it's attempted murder on a Tier 1 executive." Zoraida, meanwhile, is a whirlwind of technical precision inside the site office. She has bypassed the local servers, routing the structural integrity data through her old contacts at MIT and Cambridge. She isn't just proving the village is safe. She's proving that the audit conducted by Kangdi Global was a mathematical fabrication. She looks at her screen. A map of the village glows in neon green, showing the load distribution across the ancient foundations. The Siak Bingo, the ice house, is highlighted. "Victor," she shouts through the open window of the office. "I have it. The data shows the ice house is actually acting as a structural anchor. Its presence prevents the very subsidence Cho is claiming is a hazard." Victor doesn't turn his head. He keeps his eyes locked on Director Cho. "Did you hear that, Director? It seems your audit missed a fundamental law of physics, or perhaps you just chose to ignore it." The tension is broken by the arrival of a fleet of black sedans, not hand-holdings, but the High Court of Seoul. Justice Kim, a woman known for her icy adherence to the law, steps out. She holds a document that glints in the rising sun. "Cease all activity," she commands, her voice amplified by a megaphone. "A temporary restraining order has been issued. Hand-holdings versus the Ministry of Interior. Any movement of machinery will be treated as contempt of court." The bulldozers groan as their engines are finally silenced. The silence that follows is deafening. Victor stands up, his suit ruined, his hands caked in the earth of Hegeum. He doesn't look like a loser. He looks like a man who has just won a war he didn't know he was fighting. Zoraida runs from the office, skidding to a halt in front of him. She doesn't care about the cameras or the lawyers. She reaches out and grips his shoulders, checking for injuries. "You're insane," she whispers, her eyes bright with tears. "I'm an architect's partner," Victor replies, his voice raspy. "I was just checking the structural integrity of the front gate." But the victory is short-lived. As Justice Kim approaches, her expression is grim. "Mr. Han, Ms. Adebio, the injunction holds for 48 hours, but Kangdi Global has filed a countersuit. They aren't just attacking the site anymore. They are attacking your credentials. They've leaked a report claiming your restoration methods use substandard materials to save costs. They're aiming for the heart of your reputations." Victor's face hardens. The corporate war has moved from the dirt to the courtroom, and this time, the weapons are lies. The courtroom is a cathedral of law, all dark wood and high ceilings. The air is cold, filtered through an HVAC system Victor likely designed years ago. Kangdi's legal team is a hydra of silver-tongued specialists. They present evidence of weakened timber, porous stone, and a reckless disregard for modern safety codes. They paint Zoraida as an outsider who doesn't understand the realities of Korean urban density. Zoraida sits at the defense table, her hands steady. She has spent the last 18 hours in a laboratory, not a library. Beside her, Victor is a silent shadow. He has been remarkably quiet, letting Zoraida take the lead. He realizes that in this arena, his reputation as the eraser is a liability. She is the light. The defense calls Zoraida Adebio, Justice Kim announces. Zoraida stands. She carries a small wooden box. She doesn't go to the podium. She goes to the central display table. "Your Honor," Zoraida begins, her voice echoing with a clarity that silences the room. "The prosecution claims we used substandard materials. They claim the traditional joinery, the gyurium miori, is a decorative affectation that weakens the structure. They are wrong." She opens the box. Inside are 2 pieces of wood, joined together in a complex, interlocking pattern without a single nail or drop of glue. "This is a sample of the cypress we sourced for the Hegeum Community Hall," she explains. "It was grown in the southern forests, aged for 20 years. It has a higher density than the structural steel Kangdi uses in their global hub. But more importantly," she picks up a small mallet. "The prosecution's modern buildings are rigid. When the earth moves, they resist until they snap. But this," she strikes the wood. "The joint doesn't break. It shifts almost imperceptibly, absorbing the energy. This is a living joint. It breathes. It adapts. It's the difference between a person who stands stiffly and a person who knows how to dance. Hegeum Village isn't standing despite its age. It's standing because of it." She then turns to the screen, projecting a 3D scan of the ice house. And here is the truth Kangdi tried to hide. The stone they called porous is actually a volcanic basalt that regulates humidity. By preserving it, we've created a natural climate control system for the entire block. We haven't cut costs. We've leveraged the wisdom of 2 centuries to create a building that is 300% more efficient than anything Victor Han has ever built. A murmur of shock ripples through the court. Victor leans forward, a look of profound pride on his face. "Mr. Han," Justice Kim says, looking at him, "do you have anything to add to your partner's testimony?" Victor rises. He doesn't look at the judge. He looks at the Kangdi executives in the front row. "Only this. My company has spent decades erasing the past because we were afraid of its complexity. We thought simplicity was strength. We were wrong. Ms. Adebio has shown me that the most complex structures are the ones that endure. I am moving to dismiss all claims, and furthermore, I am filing a motion to designate Hijium Village as a permanent, sovereign heritage trust. I am divesting my commercial interest. It will belong to the people, and it will be restored exactly as she designed it." The Kangdi lawyers scramble, but it's over. The truth of the materials has exposed the lies of the men. The village is alive. It's a riot of color and sound. The artisan workshops are filled with the scent of sawdust and kiln-fired clay. Tourists and locals mingle in the ice house library, walking over the glass floor that reveals the ancient stone foundations below. Zoraida stands on the balcony of the community hall, the very one she fought for. The pink dress from the gala has been replaced by a functional, elegant linen suit. She looks out over the district, her heart full. A hand rests on the small of her back. Victor. He's dressed casually, no tie, his sleeves rolled up. He looks younger, the tension that once lived in his jaw finally gone. "The sensors show 0 subsidence in the north sector," he says, smiling. "The living joints are holding perfectly." "I told you they would," Zoraida teases. They look down at the courtyard. A group of children are learning traditional wood carving from the elderly ceramist. The past isn't just being remembered, it's being practiced. "The board still hates me for giving up the commercial rights," Victor muses, pulling her closer. "They say I'm the only developer in history who went into a project to make a fortune and came out with a library." "You came out with more than a library, Victor," Zoraida says, turning to face him. He looks at her, his eyes reflecting the warm wood and the bright sky. "I did. I came out with a blueprint that actually makes sense." He reaches into his pocket and pulls out a small, intricately carved wooden ring, made from the same southern cypress they used for the hall. No diamonds, no gold, just the material that survived the fire. "This is the most structurally sound proposal I can make," he says, his voice thick with emotion. "I don't want to just build the city with you, Zoraida. I want to be the foundation you stand on. For as long as we both last." Zoraida takes the ring, the wood warm against her palm. She looks at the man who was once the eraser, and sees the man who is now her partner in every sense of the word. "The restoration might take a lifetime," she warns, a mischievous glint in her eyes. "Good," Victor replies, leaning in to kiss her as the sun sets over the curved roofs of the village they saved. "I've always preferred the long-term projects." Behind them, the lights of Seoul begin to twinkle, but for the first time, the skyscrapers don't look like monuments of isolation. They look like a backdrop to a story that refused to be erased. The end.